Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Lena and I make college and book related content here on YouTube, and today will be my November wrap up. It sounds a little bit like I have somewhat of a sick voice. That's because last week I actually lost my voice kind of randomly, and I've been working at getting it back ever since, but it still kind of sounds a little odd, or at least it does to me. So hopefully it's not too bad. I've put off filming this video for a while, but I really want to get it up before we get too far into the month of December, so I'm just taking the time to film it now. But if my voice bothers you a little bit, I apologize. It is a little cracky, squeaky, maybe a little hoarse or lower than normal, I don't know. But anyway, in the month of November, I read 2 different books, and honestly, at the end of October, I really thought I'd be able to read more because I thought I'd be able to read during my Thanksgiving break because we get a whole week off from my university. However, I actually had a draft of my independent study project due during that week of break, and so I spent my whole time writing, which was not fun. So that means I did not read. But I did end up reading 2 books during the month, so I'm going to talk about those. The first book that I read in the month of November was In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado, and this is a memoir about Carmen's life growing up, around college age and slightly after that. And it recounts her abusive relationship with her girlfriend at the time and really just her experience with that. Obviously a very important story to tell. I gave this book 3 out of 5 stars, mostly because I wasn't quite sure how to rate it because it was such an important story, and for me, memoirs are so deeply personal, and oftentimes they are about things that are really tough to talk about or tough to think about or tough to discuss and write about, whatever that might be. In this case, it's definitely what was going on. Talking about abusive relationships is not only really tough, but it's also important, and I think that Carmen Maria Machado really did a great job using different elements to tell her story. I really liked the footnotes with all of the fairy tale motifs throughout. I thought that was really interesting, but also really powerful because it kind of added a new layer to the story and added this different, a window into kind of who the author is as a person. I had mixed feelings about other aspects of the form. There was kind of a choose your own adventure section, which I have never liked that kind of book, and I just found it frustrating. And then there was also just some other choices with the storytelling and form style that I didn't love as well. But also I don't want to dwell on the critique because I think overall the author is offering up this really important story, and I read it because a friend recommended this book to me, and just because maybe I did not relate to the content as much does not mean this is not an important book or a book that should not be shared and told. I think it's incredibly well written and incredibly powerful. It has a lot to offer about abusive relationships, kind of how the intersection between that and queer relationships, because that's not really something that is talked about as much. And so I think that it definitely has a lot to offer, and if that sounds like something that you want to learn more about or are really passionate about hearing other stories, then I definitely recommend it. The next book that I read in the month of November was Marmion by Sir Walter Scott. This isn't actually a book, it's an epic poem told in 6 cantos. I also gave this book 3 out of 5 stars. It basically is set during the Battle of Flodden Field, which took place in the early 16th century in Scotland, and it is the last battle that a British monarch died in, or a Scottish monarch, one of them died in, and it's also one of a huge point of conflict between Scotland and England. However, the main characters are completely fictional, and their story is fictional as well, and so it's considered a Regency versus romance. It's very romantical, It's very heavy on the romance, as you can tell, but it also is really interesting because at the beginning of each canto there is an introduction that is dedicated to different people in Scott's life that are real people, and it's kind of these reflections and mediations on current life in England, on fairy tales, on folklore, on mythology, and just kind of how all of that plays together. So I think that's really interesting. I read this for my Jane Austen project. I'm doing a paper on Persuasion by Jane Austen, which I read in the month of October, and then this epic poem, because she references a couple different poems in them, and one of them is Marmion, so I really wanted to talk about that. I'm not going to go too much into that because that's not the point of this video, but that is the reason why I read this book, and it did make me want to read more Sir Walter Scott. So I actually, over Thanksgiving break, when we went to a used bookstore, I ended up picking up a copy of Ivanhoe by Sir Walter Scott, because I kind of want to get more into his prose and novels. And then just because I didn't read many books this month, the book that I'm currently reading, in case you're interested, is Night of the Living Res by Morgan Talty. This is a collection of short stories. I thought I would be able to finish this, but alas, I was not able to because Thanksgiving break was a disaster. But it's a collection of short stories. These are stories written by Morgan Talty, who is a member of the Penobscot Nation in Maine, and these are just a bunch of different short stories. And what I was saying when I talked about this in a vlog, that I thought it's really great that some of the same characters appear in multiple stories, and so you kind of get to learn more about them even though they're contained within short stories. So I really liked that, and I'm hoping to finish that before I leave for school, because this is a library book and I am going to be leaving school in like a week and a half, so I need to get on that. Those are all the books that I read in November, all 2 of them, and I am looking forward to reading more during winter break, which I definitely will be able to do, which is really exciting. But thank you so much for watching today's video. If you have any questions, book recommendations, video recommendations, feel free to leave it down in the comments below, and I will see you all next week.